You ever play a game so ambitious it kind of breaks itself then somehow becomes unforgettable? That's Xenogears, a philosophical JRPG with giant mechs, memory loss, and a second disc that basically sits you down and explains what the devs ran out of time to show. And weirdly, that broken part is what makes it stick. This is the story of how a rejected Final Fantasy pitch became one of gaming's most beloved misfits and how its imperfection made it a cult classic. In 1998, Square released Xenogears. It wasn't a sequel, it wasn't a franchise starter, it was a standalone wildcard with themes most RPGs wouldn't dare touch. The game combined anime-style storytelling with deep emotional trauma, religious allegory, and yes, robot battles. The visuals felt ahead of their time. The combat mixed real-time movement with turn-based tactics, and the soundtrack, god tier. But the ambition came at a cost. The developers ran into deadline hell, and this too? Well, we'll get into that. Point is, Xenogears wasn't meant to win awards. It was meant to represent something, and 25 years later, it still does. It still does. Tetsuya Takahashi and Kaori Tanaka pitched Xenogears as a possible Final Fantasy VII. The idea? A story that asked big questions about identity, loss, and free will, all wrapped in a mecha-powered sci-fi epic. Squared looked at it and went, interesting, but maybe don't slap Final Fantasy on it. The pitch got passed over, briefly considered as a Chrono sequel, but ultimately rejected. But the creators didn't let go. They reworked it into something new, its own world, characters, and mythology. The result? An RPG that feels deeply personal, more like a visual novel with an existential crisis than your typical Swords and Dragon quest. And right from the first few hours, it's clear. This isn't here to comfort you. It's here to challenge you.
Not just anyone can pilot those machines, you know.
Xenogears had a team of artists who weren't just talented, they were driven. Kunihiko Tanaka gave the characters their signature visual style, while Junya Ishigaki designed gears that felt more like living titans than tools. And then there was Yasunori Mitsuda. Fresh off composing Chrono Trigger, he poured his soul into the soundtrack with ethereal melodies, haunting vocals, and Celtic influences that somehow made a sci-fi game feel spiritual. The OST doesn't just score the action, it anchors the emotion. In towns, dungeons, and cutscenes, the music whispers what the characters can't say. Especially the track Small Two of Pieces, which still gives people chills 2 decades later. The game was captivating, funny, and at first glance, it seemed like Square had made the perfect JRPG. Until it wasn't. Now, let's talk about the infamous Disc 2. Disc 1, full gameplay, exploration, cutscenes, battles. Disc 2, you sit in a chair while characters narrate what should have been entire playable chapters.
What the hell was that?
Square's dev team ran out of time and resources, so they had to choose. Cut the story short or tell it the only way they could. Bare bones, stripped down, and raw. What we got is essentially a long-form storyboard readout mixed with occasional combat. And while some players called it a PowerPoint RPG, others found it deeply affecting. The presentation may have been compromised, but the emotional stakes, it's definitely still there. As long as you're patient enough to read huge paragraphs of exposition. It turns out that if the writing is strong enough, even a narrated slideshow can leave you heartbroken. Xenogears wasn't shy about tackling difficult topics: childhood trauma, mind control, fate versus dogma, and the nature of humanity itself. And in 1998, localizing that for a Western audience was a challenge. Some dialogue didn't translate cleanly. Some religious themes were toned down, and some philosophical lines, yeah, they got a little murky. But even through awkward phrasing and mistranslations, the soul of the story broke through. Characters questioned their identities, struggle with guilt and forgiveness. The game isn't just about fighting evil, it's about surviving it by finding your true self. And despite all the localization hurdles, players still found themselves deeply moved and affected. Xenogears never got a direct sequel, but it didn't vanish. Takahashi moved on to create Xenosaga, which carried many of Xenogears' themes. Later, he helped launch Xenoblade Chronicles, taking the ambition even further: open worlds, epic narratives, and philosophical undertones. And through it all, you can feel Xenogears' DNA through those games. Its obsession with memory, morality, scale, and connection. It went from cult classic to spiritual parent. You see its fingerprint in music design, cinematic pacing, even character tropes across the JRPG landscape. Xenogears didn't just leave a mark, it left a blueprint. So, will we ever see a remake? Square Enix has responded vaguely, saying they're considering various options. The challenge? This too will need a complete rework, and Takahashi, the original director, now works at Monolith Soft under Nintendo. Meanwhile, fans have created Unreal Engine demos, HD texture packs, and animated tributes that feel like love letters. No release window, no teaser, just hope. And sometimes, hope's enough to keep a legend alive. Xenogears didn't do everything right, but what it did, telling a story that's raw, brave, and deeply personal, it did with conviction. It's a game about broken people, broken systems, and the beauty that comes from trying anyway. Whether you loved it or hated, or still don't totally understand it, this JRPG is one for the books. In a medium field with polish and perfection, Xenogears whispered something rough and real, and a lot of us heard it loud and clear. If this video brought back memories or made you curious to try it for the first time, drop a comment below and let's talk about these two trauma, favorite tracks, and whether Ellie carried the whole game emotionally. Hit like, subscribe, and stick around as I've got more stories lined up about the weird, the wonderful, and the games that dare to be different. Thank you for watching this video. Keep gaming and stay awesome.